Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing okay tonight. If you're new here, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Let me tell you my shocking true personal story. My husband and I had been struggling financially for months. He finally asked his younger brother to move in with us temporarily to help with bills and chores. One evening I came home early and overheard my husband telling his brother, "Just help her out when I'm not around, okay? She needs it." That was the moment everything changed. We lived in a small two-bedroom apartment. The kind where you could hear every footstep, every sigh through the thin walls. My husband worked long night shifts, leaving me alone with his brother, who had just lost his job. The first few days felt normal enough. I Chidi helped carry the groceries, fix that leaky faucet he'd been nagging about for weeks. I told myself it was nothing, just family helping family. But late at night, when the apartment grew quiet and my husband's side of the bed stayed cold, I started noticing how his eyes lingered when I walked past in my robe after a shower. The way they traced the edge of the fabric, just for a second too long. I told myself it was nothing, just my loneliness stalking after months without real intimacy. Months of quick goodbyes and empty promises. One rainy afternoon, the kind where the sky presses down heavy and the air feels thick with waiting, he helped me reach something on a high shelf in the kitchen. I was on my tiptoes, stretching, my fingers brushing nothing but dust. He stepped in behind me without a word, his chest brushed against my back. Solid, warm through the thin cotton of his shirt. I caught the warm, clean scent of his soap mixed with rain from the open window, something fresh and masculine that made my pulse stutter. His breath ghosted near my ear as he handed me the box, his arm extended just enough that our bodies stayed pressed close for one heartbeat longer than necessary. I froze there, trapped between the counter and the heat of him. I shouldn't feel this heat spreading through me, slow and unstoppable like warm honey under my skin, but I didn't pull away, not right away. His hand hovered near my waist as he stepped back, not quite touching, yet close enough that the almost contact left my skin tingling, aching in places I didn't want to name. I whispered a shaky thank you, my voice barely above the patter of rain on the glass. He just smiled, that quiet, crooked smile of his, the one that made his eyes soften in a way his brothers never did anymore. I turned quickly, busying myself with nothing, but the air between us felt charged, electric, like the storm outside had slipped inside and wrapped around us both. Why did my body react like that? I kept asking myself later, alone in the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. He was only trying to be helpful. My husband had literally asked him to step in, to help out. It was innocent. It had to be, yet every time I closed my eyes, I felt that brush of his chest again, that faint scent of rain and soap clinging to my thoughts. The guilt twisted sharp in my stomach. Yuri married. This craving is dangerous. Stop. But the loneliness Sid been carrying for so long whispered back, softer. Hungrier. That night as I lay in bed listening to the distant rumble of thunder, I cowled to shake the memory. Sam's brother was just across the hall now, breathing under the same roof. The walls felt thinner than ever, and somewhere in the dark, that single almost touch kept replaying. Pulling me under like gravity, I cowled and fight. What if he felt it too? The thought sent a fresh wave of heat through me, and I turned over, pressing my face into the pillow to muffle the sound of my own uneven breathing, knowing sleep wouldn't come easy, not anymore. We started finding excuses to be in the kitchen together when my husband worked late. The Chidi chopped vegetables while I stirred the pot, the steam rising between us like a secret we hadn't named yet. That same slow R&B song he always played drifted from his phone. The one with the low bass that settled deep in my chest and made everything feel softer, heavier. Our fingers brushed when I passed him the salt shaker. The touch lasted a fraction longer each time, enough for warmth to bloom where skin met skin, enough for me to notice how his hand stayed near mine on the counter afterward. I told myself it was nothing, just two people sharing a meal, but my body remembered every accidental graze, the way his sleeve would slide against my arm, the quiet rhythm of his breathing sissening with mine over the hiss of oil in the pan. I began waiting for those evenings, counting the hours until the front door clicked shut behind my husband, craving the low hum of that song and the nearness that made the air feel thicker, sweeter, nights pressed down hardest. side of the bed stayed empty more often than not, his excuses piling up like unspoken distance. I'd lie there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint sounds from the next room. His brother moving around, the creak of the floorboards, the occasional sigh that carried through the thin walls. I wondered what it would feel like if those hands that steadied me earlier held me properly, wrapped around me when the loneliness clawed too deep. "I'm a married woman," I whispered into the pillow, voice cracking on the words. "This is wrong. A Chi-S family." Not. The thoughts circled, sharp with shame, yet the ache only deepened, spreading slow like heat through chilled limbs. I couldn't stop imagining the safety of someone close who actually saw me, wanted to be near without rushing away. Guilt twisted tight in my stomach, but the hunger whispered louder in the quiet hours, pulling me under until morning. One humid evening after a long, sticky day, I stepped out of the shower, skin still damp and flushed from the heat. I wrapped the towel tight around myself and padded into the narrow hallway, hair dripping cool trails down my back. He came around the corner at the same moment, arms full of folded laundry, and we collided gently in the tight space. The towel slipped just a little at the edge, loosening against my collarbone. His hands moved instinctively, catching my shoulders to steady me, fingers warm and firm against the bare skin there. For one suspended heartbeat, we didn't move, eyes locked in the dim light, breath mingling in the small gap between us. The air grew heavy, charged, like the moment before thunder breaks. I felt the heat radiating from his body, the faint scent of his soap still clinging to him, mixing with the steam from my shower. My pulse hammered so loud it drowned out everything else. I murmured, the word barely a breath, but neither of us stepped back right away. His grip lingered, not tight, just enough to keep the almost from becoming nothing. My mind screamed to pull away, to tighten the towel and laugh it off like it was nothing. But my body stayed rooted, trembling with the weight of how close we were, how easy it would be to lean in just a fraction more. Dangerous and undeniable, leaving me breathless in the narrow hallway, wondering what would happen if one of us finally closed that last inch of space. A week later, the house felt heavier with absence again. My husband's voice crackled through the phone, tired, distant, promising another late night at the office. "Don't wait up," he said, the same words that had started to feel like permission. I hung up and stood in the living room, shoulders knotted from hours hunched over my laptop, the ache deep and stubborn. He appeared in the doorway, quiet as always, piping his hands on a dish towel. "You look like you could use a break," he murmured, eyes soft with concern that never quite hid the hunger underneath. "Let me help with those shoulders. Nothing fancy, just a quick massage." I should have said no. I should have laughed it off and retreated to my room like a proper wife. Instead, I sank onto the couch, heart already racing, and nodded. His hands settled on me, warm through the thin fabric of my shirt at first, then slipping beneath the collar when I didn't stop him. The pressure was perfect, firm, knowing, each slow need sent sparks traveling down my spine, loosening knots I hadn't realized were there. His breath brushed the back of my neck as he leaned closer. The room grew warmer, smaller. I forgot how to speak. Till my mind spun with warnings, "This is your husband's brother. This is betrayal," but my body leaned into the touch like a plant toward light. One thumb traced a slow circle just below my shoulder blade, and I shivered, a small helpless sound escaping before I could catch it. He paused. "Too much?" The question hung between us, loaded. I shook my head, unable to form words. His hands moved lower, bolder, mapping the curve of my back with a care that felt dangerously intimate. The line we had danced around for weeks dissolved under those palms. When he finally turned me toward him, eyes dark and searching, there was no almost left. We crossed it completely, right there on the couch that still carried the faint scent of my husband's cologne from the night before. In that moment, relief flooded me so fiercely it drowned the guilt. For the first time in months, I felt seen, wanted, alive in a way that made everything else fade. Yet as the heat between us settled, a single thought pierced through: there's no going back now. I've betrayed everything we built, and still my fingers curled into his shirt, holding on as if letting go would shatter me. After that night, the secret took on its own quiet rhythm. Whenever my husband's car lights swept away from the driveway, we found each other without needing excuses. A text from him while I folded laundry come here, and I would slip into his room, heart hammering with equal parts fear and craving. He made me feel desired again, not like an afterthought or a duty, but like someone worth lingering over. I told myself it was harmless in its own twisted way. My husband had literally asked him to help me, to step in when he couldn't. I was only taking what had been offered, filling the empty spaces without hurting anyone who didn't already choose to stay away. The stolen kisses in the kitchen while dinner simmered on the stove tasted sweeter for their risk. His hand brushing my waist as he reached for a glass, the way our bodies aligned so naturally when no one was watching. Quiet nights in his room became my refuge, the low murmur of his voice against my ear chasing away the loneliness that had grown too loud. Even the scent of his skin lingered on my sheets afterward, a hidden comfort I buried my face into when the house fell silent again. It grounded me, made the long days bearable. I justified every moment, stacking reasons like fragile shields against the truth pressing at the edges of my mind. This was survival, not destruction, just a people easing what life had left taking. Yet every time the wave receded and our breathing slowed, the guilt crashed in like cold water. What kind of wife am I? His own brother. The words echoed in the dark while he slept beside me, arm draped heavy across my waist. I would lie there staring at the ceiling, torn between the peace of his nearness and the sharp sting of how wrong it all was. This is family. This is the ultimate betrayal. But then he would stir, pull me closer without waking fully, and the morality faded under the simple weight of how alive he made me feel. My mind wrestled constantly, whispering stop this before it consumes everything, yet my body answered with a deeper hunger that refused to let go. Stopping felt impossible now, like trying to unlearn breathing. The pull between us had become its own gravity, drawing me back night, even as shame burned hotter with every stolen touch. I traced the line of his jaw in the dim light, heart taking with the sweetness and the terror of it all. How much longer could we keep pretending this was just help? The next evening the air between us crackled with unspoken need, even before the front door closed behind my husband. I told myself I would resist this time, keep some distance, protect what little remained of my conscience. But when he looked at me across the room, that quiet intensity in his gaze stripped away every resolve. One step then another, and suddenly we were tangled again, the world narrowing to the heat of his hands, and the way my name sounded on his lips like a confession and a prayer at once. Maybe everything. My pulse spiked with fresh panic even as pleasure threatened to pull me under completely. In that suspended breath, I wondered if this fragile balance was about to shatter or if the secret had only grown hungrier for the risk. One evening my husband came home earlier than expected. The key turned in the lock just as the air in the room still hummed with our almost touch. We barely had time to separate. I snatched at my blouse, fingers clumsy, heart slamming against my ribs like it wanted out. He slipped toward the hallway, his footsteps too quick, too loud in the sudden silence. Our eyes met for one panic second across the dim living room, that single glance heavy with everything we couldn't say. I smoothed my hair, forced a smile that felt cracked at the edges, and stepped into the kitchen as if nothing had happened. The scent of rain still clung faintly to my skin from the open window, mixing with the faint trace of his soap that I knew I couldn't wash away fast enough. My husband walked in, shaking water from his coat, complaining about the traffic. I nodded, murmured something about dinner, but my pulse wouldn't settle. Every beat reminded me how close we'd come, how his brother's hand had been inches from mine on the counter, how our breaths had tangled just moments before. The danger didn't dull the ache. It sharpened it, made the hunger feel alive in a way that scared me more than the almost discovery itself. Later that night, after the house quieted and my husband had fallen asleep with the TV murmuring low, I sat alone on the edge of the bed. The sheets still carried a whisper of warmth that wasn't his. I asked myself the question that had been circling like a storm I couldn't outrun. Should I end it? Right now, before the cracks spread too wide? Part of me wanted to resist, to go back to the quiet emptiness that had become normal, to pretend those stolen moments were just a fever dream brought on by loneliness. I could still choose the safer path, the one where guilt didn't sit like a stone in my chest, but the thought of never feeling that pull again, of losing the way he looked at me like I was the only real thing in the room, it terrified me more than any risk. My mind whispered that this could destroy us all, tear through the family like hidden fire under dry leaves, Yet my heart answered with a deeper truth I couldn't silence. I wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. The craving had rooted too deep, wrapping around the empty spaces my husband had left behind. I pressed my face into the pillow, breathing in the faint, forbidden comfort that lingered there. How had something offered as help turned into this aching secret that owned me now? The moral war raged quietly inside, one side begging me to protect what remained, the other clinging desperately to the Alavance he awakened. Even in the dark, alone with my thoughts, the gravity between us felt stronger than shame. I knew it was wrong. I knew it could shatter everything if the wrong door opened at the wrong time, but stopping felt like trying to hold back the tide with bare hands. The connection had become part of my breathing, part of the quiet rhythm that kept me going through the long days. So here I am, whispering all of this to you in the dead of night, heart trembling with the weight of confession. I crossed a line I never thought I would, letting his own brother step in where my husband couldn't, or wouldn't. Now I'm living with this tempting secret every single day, the electricity still humming under my skin even when we're careful to stay apart. The almost moments replay in my mind when the house is still, leaving me breathless and torn between regret and that same deep hunger. Tell me honestly in the comments, did I do the right thing by letting his brother help me when the loneliness grew too heavy? Or should I have found the strength to stop before it consumed us? If you've ever felt that same pull, that same impossible choice between what's safe and what makes you feel truly seen, share below. I need to know I'm not alone in this ache. Please like if this confession hit something raw in you. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, and turn on notifications. Because next time it'll tell you exactly how far things have gone, and what happened the night my husband almost found out everything. The secret is still here, warm against my thoughts, refusing to let go, and some part of me still doesn't want it to.